You are surrendering to something deeper than thought, older than time, and colder than truth. Each breath you take pulls you further from what you thought was real. You carry yourself like you are a thing, singular, whole, an entity that has moved, uninterrupted, from the trembling birth scream to the breath you just took. You imagine you are continuous, a you, with a spine that runs through memory, morality, preference, identity. But take a scalpel to this fantasy, and the truth leaks out, like something you weren't supposed to see. Let's begin with a story they've told in philosophy classrooms for over 2,000 years. The ship of Theseus, a ship revered and historic, preserved lovingly by replacing each of its rotting planks over time, one by one, slowly, until no original piece remains. And then the question, is it still the same ship? Now, if someone took all the discarded planks and rebuilt the original beside it, plank by plank, screw by screw, which is the real ship of Theseus, you already know the answer. You also know it's a trick, because there isn't one. Apply this not to a wooden hull, but to yourself. You think you're consistent, but your cells have died and been replaced again and again. You shed skin, rebuild organs, lose neurons, grow new ones. You were born with around 100 billion neurons, but by adulthood, you've already lost more than half. Your gut microbiome, which shapes your moods, immunity, even thoughts, isn't even you. It's alien, non-human, foreign DNA running the software of your personality from inside your stomach. Still think the you that cried in your mother's arms is the same as the you listening to this now. And let's talk about memory, the last desperate thread you cling to when the body argument fails. But your memories lie. They're not stored like files. They're reconstructed, rewritten every time you retrieve them. You distort them, you edit them, you delete what doesn't fit the narrative. Every remembered trauma is part fantasy. Every joyful nostalgia is part hallucination. Your mind gaslights itself with precision. You've been the ship of Theseus all along, rebuilt, repainted, reimagined. But here's what the philosophers didn't ask. What happens when there's no original left to remember? Not even one plank, not even a single consistent belief. That's where you are now. The personality you think of as you is nothing but a survival strategy cobbled together by accidents of biology and experience. A behavior here, a trauma there, a smile that worked in childhood, a belief that kept you safe, an identity formed not by truth but by necessity. Consider this: if you'd been born in another century, to another country, with another language, and another family, you'd have different values, fears, loves, hates, religion, and thoughts. You'd be someone else entirely, yet that other version would swear it was you to dot. So which one is the real you? Neither, both. Or are you just a ship that's forgotten it ever had a harbor? In psychological terms, we call this the narrative identity, the brain's compulsive need to thread chaos into story. It weaves memories into fiction, plots them, censors the uncomfortable parts. It cuts and pastes until it makes a coherent character arc, and then points to it and says, "That's me." But the you that you think about, that self, does not exist in your brain as a real object. It's an emergent illusion, like a rainbow or a whirlpool. It can be described, but never touched. You can't put your finger on you. The closer you get, the more it evaporates. This is why the mirror has always haunted people, not because of vanity, but because of its secret. You are not there, just skin, just angles, a mask with eyes. You look long enough, and the sense of self starts to fracture, a phenomenon called the strange face illusion, observed in psychological experiments. Stare into your reflection under low light long enough, and your face begins to warp. See strangers, you see distortions. Some even report seeing nothing, no face at all. Now think of that. A being who doesn't recognize its own face. A story that forgot its narrator. A mind that rebuilds itself with lies just to keep functioning there. Is no true you. There never was. There's only the container you inherited, a fragile skeleton, wired with nerves, and the story you were forced to improvise so you wouldn't scream every time you looked in the mirror. So, one last question before you drift. If your memories are fake, your body isn't constant. Your self is a hallucination, and your reflection lies. ... What exactly is falling asleep right now? You think, therefore you are. That's the first lie. Because you do not think your thoughts. Your thoughts think you. Let's start with something ugly and proven. Benjamin Libert's experiment. 1980s. A subject is asked to flick their wrist at any random time whenever they feel like it, and to record the precise moment they became aware of the urge to move. While this is happening, electrodes are measuring their brain activity. Here's what they found. The brain initiated the action more than 300 milliseconds before the subject became consciously aware of deciding to move. In other words, the decision was made before the mind was aware it had decided. Let that sit inside you. You didn't choose. You noticed a choice after it had already been made. You were informed of your own action, the way a news anchor reads about events they had no part in shaping. But the deception goes deeper than timing. Try this. Sit still, perfectly, no distractions, and wait for your next thought. Where did it come from? You didn't summon it. You didn't shape it. You didn't design its phrasing. It simply arrived, uninvited, unanalyzed, complete, like a guest that walked through your front door and started speaking in your voice. Your brain is a predictive machine, constantly simulating, rerunning, filtering, and inventing, all before you're aware. It is the magician. You are the audience. The self, your precious I, is a PR team trying to make the magic look intentional. You think you thought it, but really, it was delivered to you by circuits older than civilization, deep within the limbic system. Fight, flight, hunger, sex, habit. The unconscious machinery pulls levers, and the conscious mind scribbles rationalizations afterward. I wanted this. I decided that. I believe. No, you didn't. We're the last to know. It's called post hoc rationalization. The way your brain retrofits a reason for what your biology already decided. Neuroscience finds this in addiction, moral judgment, consumer behavior. People explain why they chose something, but the scan shows the choice happened first. The story came second. Even morality is a retrofit. Take the famous trolley problem. A runaway train is headed toward 5 people. You can pull a lever to redirect it onto a track where only 1 person would die. Most say they'd pull it. Now change the scenario. The only way to save 5 is to push 1 man off a bridge to stop the train. Most won't. It's the same numbers, the same outcome. But your brain isn't calculating lives. It's responding to emotional wiring, social conditioning, ancestral instincts. The conscious mind fabricates a moral justification later to maintain the illusion of virtue. And you call this thinking. You are not a thinker. You are a narrator for a process you do not control. Like a court stenographer, furiously typing words you didn't choose, ideas you didn't invent, desires you didn't program. Now, ask yourself, what would it feel like to not have free will? Would you feel robotic? Would there be a sudden sense of numbness, like someone else was driving? No, it would feel like exactly what you feel now, because even the feeling of agency is simulated. We have studies, stroke patients with alien limb syndrome, confabulating patients with split brains, soldiers with frontal lobe damage, all experiencing thoughts or movements they didn't initiate, yet still trying to justify them, still trying to explain them with, "I meant to do that." And even now, as you listen to this, you're already searching for a rebuttal. Of course, I chose to listen. I paused the video. I came back. That was me. But was it? Or did your dopamine pathway spike slightly at the sound of the voice? Did your serotonin level dip just enough to make you curious? Did your mirror neurons respond to something you don't even understand? Let's say, for the sake of argument, that you do believe in free will. Here's a question. Where did your beliefs come from? Did you choose your parents? Did you choose your language? Did you choose your first exposure to love, religion, trauma, death? Did you choose the teachers who shaped your thinking? Did you choose the time in history you were born? No. Then how can you claim to own the structure of your mind? You are the consequence of causes you never touched. And yet, here you are, arguing for your freedom, using tools you didn't invent, speaking in a language you didn't choose, from values you inherited, thinking thoughts that aren't yours. Let me twist it tighter. In 2005, neuroscientists used fMRI machines to predict which button a subject would press 7 seconds before they consciously made the decision. 7 seconds. That's longer than most people spend thinking about their choices. That's a lifetime in brain terms. The machine knew before you did. So what are you? Are you the voice in your head? Then why does it talk back to you? Are you the watcher? Then why does the watcher change its mood, its focus, its beliefs, as if it's being reprogrammed on the fly? You are a theater of cognition filled with actors auditioning for center stage. But the roles are cast without your knowledge. Scripts are whispered in neural pathways you've never seen. And when the play ends, you pretend you were the director. That's not free will. That's a well-dressed hostage situation. One last thing. The philosopher Galen Strawson asked this: you do what you do in any given situation because of the way you are. But to be truly responsible for what you do, you'd have to be responsible for the way you are. But you can't be. So how can you be truly responsible for what you do? It spirals in on itself like a black hole of blame. If you are not responsible for your thoughts, your emotions, your choices, your actions, then what is left of you? So, tonight, as your thoughts drift into something you think you're thinking, ask yourself, if you are not the thinker of your thoughts, then who or what is falling asleep right now? You imagine time as a line, past behind, future ahead, and the present, this breath, this syllable, riding the line like a train, forward motion, progress, cause and effect. In crayon, across the walls of your skull, there is no line. Time does not pass, you do. Let's begin by unraveling the clock in your chest. Your memories feel like anchors, fixed. Them that way. There is no internal calendar. Your brain reassembles each memory on demand, blending emotion, suggestion, imagination, and meaning into a reconstructed dream that feels like it happened in sequence. They live like mist, formless, scattered, shifting with context. Ask any trauma survivor. The past doesn't stay in the past. Wound is fresh. The scream hasn't ended. Time didn't flow forward, it looped. Psychologically, time behaves like water. It pools, it evaporates, it floods back when the dam breaks. And sometimes, it simply vanishes. Ever driven home and forgotten how you got there? Ever sat through a funeral and felt the clock distort? Deeply tied to attention, novelty, and emotional arousal. The now you feel. It's a neural simulation, updated every few hundred milliseconds. And by the time you experience the present, it's already the past. But let's go deeper. Let's talk physics. In 1905, Einstein shattered time with special relativity. He showed that time does not pass the same for everyone. It dilates. Two people moving at different speeds will experience time differently. The same moment, two different durations. Time isn't universal, it's personal. Now zoom out further. General relativity showed us that mass bends time, gravity slows it. A clock near a black hole ticks slower until, at the event horizon, it stops altogether. Time ends. The line breaks. Still think time flows. It states that all points in time, past, present, future, exist simultaneously. They are all real. You are not moving through time. You don't go anywhere. You are read like a sentence in a book. But the mind, your fragile, desperate mind, refuses this. Déjà vu, that flicker, the haunting sense that this has already happened. It's not memory, it's time bleeding. Your brain misfires, overlays a present moment onto a past one, and collapses the illusion of sequence. You experience time's fracture like a glitch in the simulation. Or worse, consider the predictive brain theory. In the present at all, you live 80 milliseconds in the past, so your brain can finish rendering reality. You're always slightly behind. Everything you touch, hear, or feel, it's already over. You are reacting to echoes. And then there's Planck time, the smallest possible unit of time. 0.0000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000 If that's the fundamental granularity of time, then what, exactly, is flow? Nothing flows. It jumps, it shatters, it stutters between infinitesimal frames. Time is and you are the cartoon character who thinks he's alive. So now, let's return to your idea of a life. Birth, childhood, adolescence, identity, midlife, decline, death. A story that unfolds one page at a time. But what if every page already exists? What if your death isn't in the future, It's in another part of the book, waiting to be read. You never left childhood. You never reached adulthood. You are all your moments, forever entangled, and you never move. To see the whole sculpture at once, just like a flatworm, feels only the point it touches. You feel only the moment your brain is simulating, but the rest of the shape, your birth, your death, your silent thoughts at midnight, it's all there, already, always, and yet, you feel urgency, deadlines, regret, waiting. You feel the trap of the ticking clock, but it's not ticking. You are. You're the clock. You're the illusion. And your desperate race forward is just the echo of neurons misfiring in a meat machine that refuses to accept its own stillness. So before the next second disappears or appears, ask yourself if time doesn't pass and you are simply frozen in a single unchanging slice of space-time, then who is pretending to remember and what is pretending to hope? You are built from stories, a collage of first times, betrayals, touch, trauma, taste, and names, memories stacked like bones beneath the skin of who you believe you are. You point to your past and say, "That is me," but it isn't. Some of those memories are lies. Some never happened at all, and the worst part, you don't know which ones. Let's begin with something small, the Mandela effect, the shared false memory that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s. Millions remember it, but it never happened. Others remember the bears as Berenstein or Darth Vader saying, "Luke, I am your father." None of it is real, but it feels real with absolute conviction. So where do these memories come from? Not from history, not from reality. They're fabrications, mental forgeries, produced by the same system that tells you your name when you wake up. You see, memory doesn't work like a video file. It's not recorded, then played back. It's rebuilt every time you remember it. Each retrieval rewrites. The trace adds noise, deletes facts. You reconstruct the past using the unstable present, and you call it truth. This is reconsolidation, a process well documented in neuroscience. Each time you remember something, it re-enters an unstable plastic state. It's vulnerable, influenced by context, suggestion, and mood. You remember a version, not the event. Over time, the original is gone, and all that remains is the memory of the memory. You are the ghost of your own autobiography, and it gets worse. In the 1990s, psychologist Elizabeth Loftus demonstrated how easy it is to implant false memories. In one experiment, she convinced people they had been lost in a shopping mall as a child, a completely fabricated event. Within days, participants began to remember details, the layout, the fear, even the comforting adult who helped them. They didn't just believe the story, they felt it, emotionally, physically. That's all memory needs to become real. A little narrative, a little trust, and a splash of fear. Your brain is a novelist, not an archivist. Now, think about this. What if the most painful moment of your life never actually happened the way you remember it? What if the betrayal wasn't that sharp? What if the love wasn't that deep? What if the person you mourn never existed in quite the way your grief insists? What if the cornerstone of your personality, the trauma, the triumph, the turning point, is a corrupted file? You think memory is anchored to reality, but memory is anchored to identity. An identity is constantly negotiating. What version of the past makes the present self make sense? Your mind alters the past to protect the present. It changes the meaning. It inserts villains. It edits motives. It erases guilt. It folds time so that you can sleep without screaming, and you dare call that truth. This isn't a glitch. It's a design feature. The brain prioritizes coherence over accuracy. It would rather give you a comforting lie than a disjointed truth, because what matters to the organism isn't what happened, it's what helps you survive. But sometimes, survival comes at the cost of reality. Ask any soldier with PTSD. The brain doesn't just misfile memories, it loops them, replays them with new voices, new meanings, new monsters. You don't remember the explosion. You remember the sound behind the sound, the part your conscious mind didn't register, and your brain adds to it until it becomes more real than real. Or ask survivors of abuse how time fractures, how the mind fills in blanks it can't explain, how memories arrive years later, uninvited, their authenticity blurred by shame, suggestion, or need. What's real? What's protection? Now ask yourself, what memories do you keep revisiting? What stories have you told yourself too many times? What parts have grown sharper with each retelling? What if the version you tell today is no longer a memory, but a fiction that replaced its original? Now bring science closer. The hippocampus, where your episodic memories form, is deeply sensitive to stress. When cortisol floods your system, grief, panic, pain, your memory becomes spotty, warped, non-linear. You don't store the full picture. You store the meaning your brain assigned to it in panic. A memory distorted by survival chemicals, and sometimes the brain just deletes things entirely. Childhood amnesia, blackouts from trauma, lost weekends, forgotten arguments, entire days gone, not tucked away, erased. But absence doesn't make it untrue. It simply makes it unprovable. And that's all the mind needs to invent something better. Think of that. Your most vivid memory might be false. Your most repressed might be true. And you have no way to know. Your body might know in the way it flinches, freezes, overreacts. Your nervous system might remember what your mind cannot. But your awareness, it's a shadow theater. And the puppets are liars. So when you say, "This is who I am," what are you really saying? That you trust a faulty narrator, that you believe the edited script, that you've built your identity on hallucinated fragments. The brain doesn't care about evidence. It cares about resolution. It will turn ambiguity into fact, fear into memory, suggestion into self. You don't remember. You assemble. You don't recall. You rewrite. You are the unreliable narrator of your own existence. So one last question to carry into the quiet. If your memories are stories, and your stories, and your stories aren't true, then what part of you is real? And who or what is doing the remembering? You are made of billions of neurons. Each neuron is unaware of you. Each cell performs its chemical ballet without belief, without personality, without intention. Yet somehow, from this swarm of blind biological processes, you emerge. You, with your identity, your beliefs, your preferences, your regrets. But here is the paradox. The thing you use to understand the universe is the one thing that can never fully understand itself. Let's start simple. Look at your hand. Flex it. Feel the skin stretch, the tendons tighten. Now ask, who did that? You say, I did. But neuroscience disagrees. In 2008, a study using fMRI scans showed that your brain makes a decision up to 7 seconds before you become consciously aware of it. In other words, you are the last to know. You don't decide to act. You notice that a decision has already been made, then narrate it as your own. Free will, it seems, may be an afterthought, a kind of myth the brain tells itself to make sense of its own behavior. And the narrator, it doesn't even speak first. Take the left brain interpreter, discovered in studies with split brain patients, those whose corpus callosum was severed. When researchers presented commands to the right hemisphere, which controls the left side of the body like stand-up, the subject's left hand would act, even though the left hemisphere, which processes language, had no idea why. When asked, the patient would fabricate an explanation. I needed to stretch. I wanted to check the thermostat. No awareness of the actual cause. Just confabulation, convincing, invented stories to justify behavior. We do it constantly. You call it reasoning. It's closer to rationalization. We act, then we explain. Then we believe the explanation was the cause. You are not thinking. You are witnessing thought and trying to take credit for it. Let's go deeper. Your brain, the most complex known structure in the universe, is trying to study itself with itself. This is like a knife trying to cut itself, or an eye trying to look at itself without a mirror. You are using a flawed, evolved organ, subject to bias, illusion, and error, to study its own structure and function. There is no outside perspective. There is no viewer behind the camera. You are inside the very thing you are, trying to map, and it was never designed for truth. Evolution didn't favor truth. It favored survival. The brain you have is optimized for just enough accuracy to navigate a threat-filled world, not to uncover reality. Think about this. Your senses deliver incomplete, distorted data to your brain. Your eyes see just a narrow band of the electromagnetic spectrum. Your ears detect only a slice of available frequencies. Your skin reports crude, mechanical, chemical, and thermal inputs. From this low-resolution data, your brain hallucinates a model of the world. Neuroscientist Anil Seth puts it plainly. You don't perceive the world. You perceive your brain's best guess of the world. So what else is your brain guessing about? Time, self, God, morality. How many of those are also hallucinations you forgot were hallucinations? Take the binding problem, one of neuroscience's great mysteries. You see a red apple. You hear a crunch. You smell sweetness. All these signals arrive at different parts of the brain at different times, yet you experience them as a unified now. How? Science doesn't know. There is no master clock, no central hub, just concurrent illusions held together by what? You think you live in the present, but your now is a stitched illusion, delayed by milliseconds, smoothed by habit, and filled with synthetic continuity. And you think your thoughts are yours, but your preferences are shaped by algorithms, your memories by suggestion, your beliefs by biology and tribal reward. The majority of your behavior is automated, unconscious. What feels like free thought is the product of billions of synaptic firings dictated by a nervous system that doesn't know you exist. Let's take this further. In 1979, psychologist Benjamin Libet conducted a famous experiment showing that brain activity begins before conscious intention. Later work confirmed it. Decision-making appears in brain scans before you report deciding. So ask yourself, who is the I that speaks? Who is the self that decides? The more science learns about the brain, the less it looks like a single thing. It's a committee of modules, different regions, for memory, for impulse, for language, for desire, sometimes competing, often contradicting. There is no CEO, there is no singular you, just an illusion of coherence, created by the brain about itself. You are a storm, pretending to be a statue. Let's get darker. Your brain can create phantom, LIMBS, sensations in arms or legs that no longer exist. It can create blind sight, the ability to respond to visual stimuli while claiming to be blind. It can generate Cotard's delusion, the belief that you are dead, or Capgras syndrome, the belief that loved ones have been replaced by imposters. If the brain can fabricate these, what makes you think it's getting your own identity right? What part of you isn't a hallucination? Your beliefs. Change them with a tumor in the prefrontal cortex. Your personality. Alter it with serotonin levels. Your morality. Rewire it with a TMS pulse to the right temporoparietal junction. And the thing you're doing now, this thinking, this reading, this reflecting, it could be noise. Your brain is always active. Thought doesn't prove self. It doesn't prove agency. It proves complexity, but not clarity. So here's the paradox that should haunt you. The brain, the one thing you trust to know anything, cannot fully know itself. It can model black holes. It can decode ancient languages. It can simulate the universe. But it cannot look in its own mirror without distortion. So what are you trusting when you say, I know? Where is the foundation? Where is the certainty? And if the thing that thinks you into existence can't fully think about itself, then who or what is thinking you? You think you see the world. You don't. You see a filtered hallucination, tuned by evolution, not for truth, but for survival. Your mind, the thing you trust most, is not a mirror reflecting reality. It is a mask worn inward. Let's begin with something you don't question: color. You see red, blue, green, but these aren't properties of the world. They're brain-born illusions. Red is not out there. It is your brain's translation of electromagnetic waves. There is no redness in the wavelengths, only in your perception. Bees see ultraviolet, snakes see infrared. Whose reality is real? Whose world is the truth? It doesn't end with color. What you feel as solid, quantum particles don't exist in the way you think. They're probability clouds, smeared across space until observed. Even then, what collapses into real is dictated by your act of measuring. Observation doesn't just describe reality, it helps create it. You aren't perceiving the world. You are perceiving a model of the world, a story constructed in real time inside your skull. Your visual field is edited before you're aware of it. Blind spots are filled in with guesses. Contradictions are erased. Illusions aren't bugs. They're features. Your mind edits, trims, lies, and calls it truth. Consider the interface theory of perception developed by cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman. His argument is brutal. Evolution does not favor true perception. It favors useful deception. Like icons on a desktop, the trash can isn't a real can, but a symbol that helps you interact with a machine. Your perception of a rock, a tree, a face, those are icons. You're not seeing reality. You're seeing a user interface, custom designed not to overwhelm you with truth, but to trick you into action. This is not metaphor. This is empirically tested. Simulations of evolutionary environments show organisms that perceive the truth die out, too slow, too overloaded. Organisms that perceive just enough illusion to survive flourish. The truth was always a liability. And so, here you are. You are the end product of a billion years of refined hallucination. Even your sense of self is stitched from this deception. You see your body as a whole, a you inside the skin. But touch, proprioception, vision, all run on delay. Every moment you perceive is half a second late. You are living in a reconstructed past, a reality that has already moved on. The now you feel is a lie designed to feel continuous. The mind lags behind the world and fills the gap with fiction. You've already felt it, haven't you? That brief lag when someone calls your name and you respond before knowing how. That gut reaction that surprises you. That moment when your mouth speaks faster than your thoughts. You weren't reacting. You were following. The illusion of control was just an afterthought, a rationalization. You are always half a second late to your own life. Even your memories, the very substance of your identity, are not stored like files. They are rebuilt each time you remember. And in the rebuilding, they change, merge, fade, invent. Eyewitness testimony is one of the most unreliable forms of evidence, yet you base your sense of self on memories like these. A movie that re-edits itself each time you press play. There's a cruel paradox here. The more you examine perception, the more it disintegrates. The closer you look at the real, the less real it becomes. You can't see the mask from inside. You can't take off the lens to see what's outside it. Every attempt you make is still part of the same deception. Evolution didn't give you truth. It gave you narratives about the world, about others, about yourself, and you believed them. You still do, every second. You trust the voice in your head, the feel of your body, the memory of your childhood. You trust your own sadness, your own love, but those too are filtered experiences, constructed, sculpted by hormones, culture, bias. There is no pure emotion, no raw self, even fear. The very instinct designed to keep you alive is a performance, a chemical stage play. You're scared of the dark, not because there's something there, but because evolution wired your amygdala to avoid the unknown. You're scared of death, not because you understand non-existence, but because the organism that didn't fear it, didn't live long enough to reproduce. And what about truth? What of logic, reason, science, our supposed antidotes to deception? Even science, that sacred pursuit, is filtered through perception. All instruments are interpreted by human minds. All data processed by brains built for survival, not accuracy. You are reading this on a screen made of symbols, translated into language, filtered through a nervous system evolved to eat, run, and reproduce. Can such a system ever access objective truth? Your brain is not a window. It is a fortress, a curated gallery of illusions, each carefully selected to keep you from seeing how deep the deception goes. You can try to break free, meditate, take psychedelics, read philosophy, and yes, you may experience breakthroughs, but even those are simulations, new layers of illusion. The mask rearranging itself into new, more complex forms. The dream dreaming, it's waking up. And yet, despite all this, you cling to your thoughts as yours, your feelings as real, your reality as the reality. But tell me, if your mind is a mask, who is wearing it? You close your eyes, and the world disappears. That's not poetic, that's physics. Everything you think of as real, tables, stars, atoms, only becomes definite when it is observed, not in the vague, mystical way of wishful thinkers, in the cold, empirical language of quantum mechanics. Matter doesn't settle into a state until you look, until something or someone observes. Welcome to the quantum prison. At the smallest scales of existence, beneath the molecules, beneath the atoms, the universe is not solid. It's not even settled. Particles exist in states of probability, called superpositions. They aren't here or there. They're both, everywhere and nowhere, until something measures them. Then they collapse into a single state, one position, one momentum, one reality. But before that collapse, they are uncertainty incarnate. Take the classic example, the double-slit experiment. Fire single electrons at a barrier with two slits. Behind it, place a screen to catch the results. If no one observes the path the electrons take, they behave like waves, interfering with themselves, creating a ripple pattern. They go through both slits at once. But the moment you observe their path, just try to see which slit they go through. The pattern changes. The wave collapses. The electron chooses a slit. The mere act of observation changes the outcome. The observer does not report reality. The observer defines it. What is an observer? That's the question that cracks open the void. Is it a camera, a detector, a conscious mind? The Copenhagen interpretation, the most widely taught, says the universe remains indefinite until it is observed. But it never defines who or what counts as the observer. So we're left with madness. Does reality need consciousness to exist? Is the moon there when no one looks? Einstein thought that idea was absurd. He once asked, "Do you really believe the moon is not there when you are not looking at it?" But the universe may not care what Einstein found comforting. Quantum physics doesn't need to be intuitive. It only needs to be true. Consider this. In a variation of the double-slit experiment, we can delay the observation. You can let a particle pass through the slits, and only after it's gone, choose whether or not to observe it. And somehow, this retroactively determines what the particle did in the past, as if reality waited for your decision before deciding what happened. The past was undetermined until the future collapsed it. This isn't metaphor. This isn't science fiction. It's been tested, repeated, confirmed. At the quantum level, reality does not exist in a definite state until it is observed. You want to believe that this doesn't affect your daily life, that it's just quantum weirdness, far removed from the real world. But remember, you are made of particles. Every atom in your body follows these laws. You are composed of uncertainties, pretending to be solid, a self built on statistical collapse. And still, we don't know what counts as an observation. Is it a mind? A measuring device? A camera? If it's consciousness, then the implications are unbearable. Because if consciousness causes collapse, then the universe depends on minds to exist. That is, until something conscious observes, the universe is suspended in potential. Before humans, before life, Was the universe just a sea of undefined probability? Did reality not solidify until eyes opened to see it? Or worse, is it not consciousness at all, but entanglement, interaction? If so, then reality is just a chain of collapses, each dependent on the next, stretching backward in a recursive tangle with no final anchor. There is no ultimate ground to existence, just a system feeding back on itself, illusions measured by illusions. You may ask, what about object permanence? If you leave a room, doesn't the chair still exist? Only in your model. Your brain predicts its continued presence, but prediction is not proof. The chair exists in your mind as a placeholder, a comfort, but the quantum realm doesn't obey your intuitions. Without continuous observation or entanglement, what exists is not matter, but probabilities. And if observation determines reality, then what is observing you? You think you are the observer, the watcher, the one collapsing the world into shape. But you're also being observed by other minds, by cameras, by memory, by the ticking of time itself. Are you still real when no one sees you? When you forget who you are? When you sleep, dreamless and blind? Where is you then? In dreams, entire worlds are constructed without effort. Landscapes rise, people speak, emotions burn, and when you wake, gone. Were they less real, or just unobserved by waking mind? Then consider this. In some interpretations of quantum mechanics, notably the many worlds interpretation, every possible outcome occurs. The wave never collapses. Instead, every observation spawns a new universe. In this framework, the observer does not determine the outcome. The observer splits into multiple selves, each experiencing a different result. A trillion versions of you scattered across parallel outcomes, infinite branches, infinite contradictions, infinite use. So which one is you? And who is observing all of them? Perhaps there is no solid world, no external stage, only minds, observing minds, stories, watching stories, masks collapsing into other masks. A recursive theater where nothing exists unless someone, something, remembers it into being. The philosopher George Berkeley once wrote, "Si est percipi," to be is to be perceived. But if you are only real when observed, then when you are alone, when no one sees you, touches you, thinks of you, are you still real, or have you already vanished? You think you choose, that you weigh options, that a little you behind your eyes pulls the levers of life. Move here, pick this, love them, say no. But by the time you arrive at the decision, it's already over. The conscious you is the narrator, not the driver. Let's start with a cruel experiment. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet hooked volunteers up to IG machines and told them to flex their wrists whenever they decided to. He asked them to note the exact moment they became aware of the recension to move. The results shattered everything. The brain showed activity related to the movement, a signal called the readiness potential, up to 7 seconds before the participants felt they made the decision. That is, the brain had already begun preparing the action long before the conscious mind was aware of any choice. Free will didn't initiate the act. It merely noticed it, like a sportscaster describing a play that's already in motion. And this wasn't a fluke. Over decades, countless replications and variations have confirmed it. Decisions emerge from unconscious neural processes before you become aware of them. The brain decides, you explain. This is not a metaphor. This is your life. Choose chocolate over vanilla. You think you've made a rational decision, but deep scans show that your brain lights up tiny patterns, chemical currents, long before you consciously make the call. The brain tips the scales. It sends signals, and then your awareness rushes in to create a reason. You convince yourself that you weighed the options, considered the pros and cons, but the reality is colder. Your decision was already done. You just signed the paperwork. After this should disturb you. It should make you question every choice you've ever made, because you never made them. Not really. Not first. The conscious mind is not a king. It is a court jester, inventing justifications for decisions it doesn't control. Why did you fall in love with her? Why did you yell at him? Why did you get out of bed this morning? Neuroscience says, don't ask your consciousness. Ask your neurotransmitters. Some researchers go even further. In 2008, studies by Chen Xiongsun and colleagues using fMRI scans showed that scientists could predict a person's decision up to 10 seconds before the subject was aware of it. Your future is already visible in your brain before you know it yourself. And if your decision can be predicted before you make it, was it ever your decision? Now ask if the brain is just chemistry and physics. If every firing neuron follows deterministic rules, then where is freedom? If everything you are is the result of electrical signals, random mutations, environmental triggers, childhood traumas, if your will is just the echo of all that, where is the space to choose? Is it randomness you want? Because randomness is not freedom. If a neuron fires by chance and causes you to act, that's not free will. It's a dice roll wearing your face. So we sit at a crossroads. Determinism says everything is caused, every decision traceable to what came before. Randomness says nothing is caused. Choices erupt without reason. In both cases, you are not in control, and yet you feel like you are. That feeling is the lie. What if choice is just the mind stitching together chaos? What if free will is the illusion necessary to survive your own programming? Because without it, despair sets in. Responsibility collapses. Morality becomes a coin toss. Society unravels. So you cling to the illusion. You need to. The illusion is so complete that we punish people as if they chose their crimes. We reward others as if they earned their virtue. But if free will is a ghost, what are guilt, shame, pride? What are laws, ethics, or even love? Even more unsettling, what if the very feeling of choice is not something you have, but something your brain creates? You don't will your thoughts into being, they appear. You don't control what thoughts come, only which ones linger. But even that control is suspect. What if you are just the thought that there's an old Zen koan, do not seek the truth, only cease to cherish opinions. It makes more sense now. If you didn't choose your beliefs, how can you take credit for them? If you didn't choose your desires, how can you blame yourself for failing them? There are cracks in the illusion. Ever made a decision you immediately regret? Ever say, why did I do that? As if someone else had taken over. You're not mistaken. That wasn't the conscious you. It was the machinery beneath the surface, the brain's dark algorithm grinding away, ancient and automatic. The conscious mind was just along for the ride. And still, despite all this, you'll continue to feel like you're choosing. You'll continue to take credit, feel shame, make plans, because the illusion is built in. It must be, because to live without it is to fall. So what remains, if not freedom? Perhaps awareness. You may not choose your thoughts, but you can witness them. You may not steer the ship, but you can watch the ocean. You may not be the author, but you can read the story, line by line, as it writes itself. And maybe, just maybe, in that awareness, there's something more honest than choice. Something quieter, something older, something real. You think of yourself as a person, a continuous self, a singular being with a stable identity, a me that stretches from childhood to now. But that you is a story. And like all stories, it's made up. You weren't born with a self. You were born with a body. The self came later, pieced together, slowly, by memories, language, trauma, praise, mistakes. And like all stories, the version you tell today is a heavily edited draft. The you in your mind is a character, fictional, curated, narrated, rewritten. Your identity is not who you are. It's the story you keep telling yourself, so you don't forget who you pretend to be. Let's begin with a hard truth. Memory is not a recording. It's reconstruction. Every time you recall an event, you're not playing back a tape. You're rebuilding it from fragments, filling in gaps, rewriting scenes, inventing dialogue, correcting lighting, recasting roles. Every memory you've relived is now altered, contaminated by new beliefs, new moods, new stories. Worse, some memories are complete fabrications, false memories, events that never happened, people who never said what you remember them saying. And yet you build your identity from these sandcastles. You say, I'm not the kind of person who would. But that kind of person is a story, you say. I've always been this way. No, you haven't. You're choosing to ignore the edits. Your brain is a novelist with amnesia. But the deeper question is this: who is telling the story? Is it you? Or is it the voice in your head? You know the one, the internal narrator, the constant commentator, the voice that judges, narrates, analyzes, explains, or that wasn't fair, or I'm not good enough. But here's the twist: that voice is not you. It's the storyteller, and it has no idea what's real. In fact, it will make up anything, absolutely anything, to maintain the illusion of a consistent self. This is called the narrative self. It is a survival mechanism. Without it, the world becomes chaotic. With it, you live inside a lie. You were the quiet kid, the funny one, the achiever, the rebel, the victim, the healer, the anxious one, the wise one, the broken one. All roles, all characters, all stories that help the mind feel less scattered, less raw, less undefined. But what happens when the story starts to crack? What happens when your identity, the character you've been rehearsing, no longer fits, no longer makes sense? When the things you used to believe about yourself fall apart? That's when the pain starts. Because the mind doesn't fear death as much as it fears contradiction. A fractured story is existential terror. So the narrator works harder, explains louder, blames others, rationalizes more, anything to keep the fiction stable. But here's a terrifying truth. Most of your suffering isn't from what's happening. It's from what you believe it means about you. You don't cry because they left. You cry because it confirms the story that you're unlovable. You don't panic because of failure. You panic because it breaks the narrative of competence you need to survive. You don't feel shame because of the act. You feel shame because the act contradicts the character you're trying to be. The story isn't helping, it's caging you. And here's the twist that undoes the mind. There was never a you to begin with, only a point of view, a center of experience, a witness. The rest is storytelling. Even neuroscience agrees. There's no single part of the brain where the self lives. No control room, no tiny captain, just a constellation of processes, illusions of continuity, a patchwork of memory, sensation, identity, and language, and the story that ties it all together. Like a movie played on a broken projector, you keep watching the film of me flicker across the screen. But there's no real, just light and shadow and habit. You are not the character in the story. You are the space in which the story appears. And when you try to find yourself, like really sit down and look, all you find is silence. Try it. Close your eyes. Ask, who am I? Not, what are my goals? Just, who? Wait for an answer. All that comes is noise. Thoughts, feelings, labels, memories, stories. But where is the you that holds them? You are the awareness the story unfolds within. And the story forgot. Breathe in. Hold that moment. Now try to find it again. It's gone. The present. The thing you anchor yourself to, meditate for, obsess over. It doesn't exist. Not in the way you think. Not as a stable point in time. Not as something that can be grasped, lived, or held. By the time you notice now, it has already passed. What you experience as the present moment is not a moment at all. It is a delay, a reconstruction, a neurological echo stitched together by your brain to keep you from losing your mind in the flood of inputs. And that echo, it's about 500 milliseconds late, half a second. That's how far behind you live. You are a time-lagged spectator in your own life. The brain can only present a smoothed-over approximation of what just happened. And by the time it's reached, you, the you that thinks and reflects the world, has already moved on. Your life is a dubbed film, and the voice never quite matches the lips. Take the Libet experiment, a cruel fracture in the illusion of agency. In the 1980s, Benjamin Libet asked participants to move their fingers while watching a clock. He recorded the time they decided to act and compared it to the moment their brain showed activity, preparing for movement. The result? Your brain makes decisions before you're aware of them. By the time you think you've chosen, the choice has already been made. The moment of now is always behind. The consciousness of now is a myth. You think you're surfing the wave. You're the foam left behind. Even Einstein, the master of time, couldn't save you. In relativity, simultaneity disappears. There is no universal now. Two observers moving at different speeds or in different gravitational fields will disagree about what's happening at this moment. The present is not an absolute slice of time. It bends, it slips, it fractures under observation. There is no shared now. There is no center of time, just a smearing of events across a warped dimension. So what are you holding on to? When you say live in the present, you are clinging to a mirage. There's nothing to live in. There's only remembering what just happened and predicting what's about to. Even mindfulness, for all its ancient calm, is not about presence. It's about attention. And attention is a delay. Imagine watching a live stream that buffers half a second behind the actual event. Now imagine mistaking that feed for reality itself. That is your life. Your now is a hallucination, a narrative compromise between perception and prediction. Time doesn't pass. You do. The arrow of time, that sense of forward momentum, is something the universe doesn't actually enforce. At the level of fundamental physics, time is symmetrical. Equations work both forward and backward. The laws don't care which way you move, it's only entropy, the increase of disorder, that gives you the illusion of time flowing. Entropy isn't time, it's decay, the fall from order to chaos, and you are riding that fall moment by vanishing moment, pretending it's a river instead of a collapse. What's worse, the now you think you're experiencing is constructed out of memory. Even your current sensations are only understood in reference to what just happened. You are not perceiving the present, you are comparing delays. This is known as the specious present, the brief window of time, roughly 2 to 3 seconds, that the brain holds on to as now, but within that window, everything is already past. The sound of the word now is already over by the time you finish saying it. The color of the light you're seeing. It took time to reach your eyes. The pain you just felt, your brain had to root it through layers of interpretation before you noticed. Even your awareness of your own breath is built out of historical data. You are not alive in the moment. You are alive in the ghost of it, and still, you build your entire identity around this flicker. You say, I am here now, but by the time you form the sentence, you're elsewhere. You say, be present, but you cannot catch it. You say, time heals, but time doesn't move. You do. The tragedy is, you keep trying to live in something that doesn't exist, and worse, you're terrified of what happens when it stops. But how can something end that never began? Here's a thought experiment. If the present doesn't exist, and the past is memory, and the future is imagination, then what are you? You are not the present. You are not the past. You are not the future. You are an echo of all three. A glitch in time, pretending to be continuity. And if the present moment doesn't exist, if there is no now to hold, then what are you running from? And what are you running toward? You think you made that choice to read this, to sit down, to scroll. You think you decided. You didn't. Something in your brain fired, and then you watched it happen. This is not poetry. Been humiliating your autonomy for decades. Start with Libet again, and to record the moment they decided to act. Their brains had already begun preparing the movement hundreds of milliseconds earlier, sometimes nearly a full second before they believed they had made a choice. By the time you think I will, you already did. This phenomenon has been confirmed again and again. Can predict your decisions before you become aware of them. In one study, researchers predicted whether participants would press a left or right button up to 7 seconds before the subject consciously decided. 7 seconds. So what part of you is you? The self is a latecomer, a commentator. From moral choices to aesthetic preferences, you tell yourself a story of why you chose something, but it's a backfilled lie, a rationalization over a process that was already in motion. Your conscious mind is a press secretary for your unconscious machinery. You are the spin, not the source. Sam Harris called free will an illusion, not because choices don't exist. Using data you don't understand, Under constraints you didn't design, you are a puppet who believes in strings it cannot see. And here's the cruelty. You are held accountable by others, by yourself, for actions and decisions you never truly authored. You punish yourself for what neurons did without your approval. Is that justice? Is that morality? That matters requires that you could have done otherwise. An urge emerges from prior conditions you could not have. Your brain is a deterministic machine, sprinkled with randomness. There is no room in there for an uncaused cause, no secret pilot behind your eyes pulling levers. If a decision is determined, it isn't free. If it's random, it isn't willed. And that's all there is. You were angry. You were destined to be. You fell in love. That circuitry was pre-written. You made a mistake. The dominoes were already falling. You believe in responsibility. Then show me the self that stood apart from its history and said, I choose. Show me the mind outside the body, unshaped by trauma, biology, and environment. You won't find it because it never existed. Even the experience of deliberation, weighing options, choosing between paths, is a narrative illusion, a real-time hallucination that something called you is doing the weighing, while, in truth, your brain is filtering options based on previous inputs and pattern weights, surfacing what feels right based on algorithms you did not design. What's worse, even the feeling of effort, of wrestling with a choice, is often a post hoc emotion, a stress signal, not proof of freedom, proof of conflict inside the machine. Imagine a chess computer analyzing a move. Does it feel indecision? With morals? No. It runs code. I feel free. I feel agency. Yes. And you feel like the sun moves across the sky. You feel like colors exist. You feel like time flows. Your feelings are not evidence of truth. They are the last defense of a frightened brain. Evolution lied to you. It crafted the illusion of authorship to keep your body alive, to simplify feedback loops, to allow for social contracts. If people didn't believe in personal agency, society would collapse. But that doesn't make it true. You aren't behind the wheel. You are the shadow in the rearview mirror. And if you didn't make your choices, if your desires were given to you, not by you, then what are you guilty of? And what can you take pride in? Is your kindness a virtue if it was never a choice? Is your cruelty a crime if it was never avoidable? Are you proud of the things your brain forced you to do? Ashamed of the chemicals that danced without permission? Then who suffers your punishment? And what, if anything, is watching all of this happen? You believe that reality can be solved? That somewhere behind the chaos is a system, logical, lawful, complete. But what if the universe isn't a puzzle? What if it's a paradox? You crave closure, explanation, finality. You were raised in the temple of logic, but logic has a ceiling, and Gödel found it. Kurt Gödel was not a philosopher. He was a mathematician, cold, pure, unyielding. And in 1931, he broke mathematics open with one devastating idea. No consistent system of logic can ever prove all truths within itself. And if it can, it's inconsistent. It was called the incompleteness theorem. And it didn't just apply to math. It applied to everything that could be formalized. Every system, every framework, every model. In other words, no matter how much you learn, there will always be truths that are unreachable from within. The ladder can never reach its own rungs. Sound familiar? You try to understand yourself with yourself. You try to explain your life from inside your life. You try to use your brain to comprehend your brain, and it breaks. It's like a book trying to read its own spine, a map trying to contain itself, a sentence saying, "This sentence is false." Self-reference collapses truth. Recursion destroys certainty. You were taught to think in neat lines, but reality does not owe you transitive closure. It is not beholden to logic's symmetry. And worse, even when logic does hold, you can't access all of it. There are truths you will never prove, not because they're too complex, but because they're unprovable within your system. Truth exceeds your tools. Like a flashlight in fog, the brighter it shines, the more you see how much is left in shadow. But you cling. You want a theory of everything, something that ties consciousness, the cosmos, and the self into a single ribbon. But G. says, no. Any theory complete enough to describe the universe will either be incomplete or inconsistent. This isn't just abstract philosophy. Quantum mechanics and relativity contradict each other. String theory, a patchwork of infinities. Biology, built on exceptions. For every rule, a mutation. For every definition, a blur. Psychology, don't even try. You are a closed loop, studying itself with itself. The mind observing the mind. A snake swallowing its own tail. Every time you approach certainty, the floor falls out. Every time you write the last sentence, another page appears. Every time you scream Eureka, silence responds. End. But still, you build. You try to fix the machine with tools forged by the machine. It's noble, it's brave, it's tragic, and it's pointless. Because logic is not your savior, it is your jailer. A beautiful prison that lets you see the stars, but never reach them. You measure infinity with rulers made of meat. You simulate the cosmos on wet electrical tissue. You hope for clarity from a language designed by apes. You will never escape the paradox, because you are the paradox. You exist within a system you cannot escape. You think thoughts you cannot verify. You feel certainty that isn't real, and you mistake coherence for truth. What if the universe is not logical, but self-referential? What if it's not a machine, but a story, and the story is glitching? What if life itself is an undecidable problem? You want meaning. Show me a framework that doesn't break itself. You want truth. Show me a proposition that justifies its own foundations. You want peace. Show me a system that completes itself without contradiction. But you can't, because you're trapped inside the system. And the system is you. So, here's the real question. If the universe cannot be known completely, if your life is a theorem with no solution, if logic itself collapses beneath your feet, then why are you still looking for answers? And what are you really trying to prove? You woke up this morning, you got out of bed, you poured your coffee, scrolled your feed, stepped into your name. But who said this was waking? Who certified this moment as real? Who drew the line between dreams and daylight, and why? Did you believe them? You trust the consistency. The sun rises. But dreams can do that too. Lucid dreams, nested dreams, false, AWAKENINGS. In the lab, they've watched people wake up inside dreams. They've wired the skull, tracked the brain waves, and still the sleeper swears they're awake until they wake up again. You could be dreaming right now. Not metaphorically, literally you say, no, This feels real. But that's the trap. Dreams don't feel fake while you're in them. They never do. You trust memory. Memory is the worst witness. The dream can plant a lifetime of false recall in seconds. A mother, a childhood, a nation, a scar. You wake believing you lived it. So what if this is a longer dream, a deeper sleep? What if the coffee in your hand, the ache in your back, the scream in your throat, what if they all dissolve the moment you wake up from this? Think it's impossible. You are biologically designed to forget dreams. Your brain purges them on waking. Why not the other way around? Why couldn't this be the dream that erases itself when you exit? Philosophers saw it long before science. Caught up. Descartes asked how he could know anything and realized he couldn't even prove he was awake. He doubted everything until only the doubt itself remained. I think, therefore I am, he wrote. But if the dream is thinking, then what are you? Then came Zhuangzi. He dreamed he was a butterfly, woke up a man, and wondered, was he a man dreaming of a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming of a man? Isn't it all a little too neat, too curated, too stitched together? And what about déjà vu, that split-second loop, that eerie certainty? I've been here before. Maybe you have. Maybe this isn't the first time through this dream. Maybe you never left. The neuroscientist Stephen Lauberg taught people how to wake up inside their dreams. He called it lucidity. You could fly, create, destroy, speak to imagined gods, all while the body slept still in the dark. But some never came back, or came back broken, unable to tell which layer was real. Sleep researchers now theorize that dreaming isn't off, it's an alternate mode of consciousness, one just as structured, just as immersive, just as real, but running on a different logic. You live assuming this world's logic is superior, but that's circular. A dream judged by dream standards always feels real. In sleep, your brain simulates. In wakefulness, your brain ... also simulates. You never see the world, only your model of it. Colors, just signals, sounds, vibrations processed into meaning. Time, a neurological construct. You call this reality. But what if reality is simply the most persistent hallucination? And what if one layer deeper is the thing dreaming you? Solipsists say, maybe there is no outside, only this flickering play of perception. You call them crazy, but you have never disproven them. You can't, because your only tools for proof exist inside the system you're trying to prove. Just like a dream, you trust your senses. Tell that to the blind spot in your vision you never notice. Tell that to the voices you've heard calling your name when no one's there. You say, but this lasts longer than a dream, as if duration proves truth. So if I showed you a dream that lasted 80 years, would you die believing it? Couldn't this entire life be a moment's flicker in something larger? Somewhere, your real body is asleep. Somewhere, your real name is forgotten. Somewhere, you've drifted so far from the waking world that this has become your default. You think you'll wake up tomorrow, but what if you already have 5 times, and this is the one that's stuck? What if you're not even the dreamer anymore? What if you're just a character inside a dream that dreamed itself, a story dreaming the author, a figure in the fog trying to name the mist, a sleepwalker convinced he's finally home? But here's the problem. Lucidity doesn't save you. In fact, Waking up inside the dream can be the most terrifying thing of all, because then you see the edges. Then you hear the static behind the curtain. Then you realize that everything you love, your name, your mother's eyes, your memories of school, the ache in your knees, they're all fabricated by the dream to keep you here. The dream wants you. It's recursive. It's sticky. It loops. And maybe the reason you can't wake up is because you already did. And this is what comes after. Touch your arm. That's you, right? Now imagine it gone. Still you, of course. You've seen people lose limbs, eyes, organs, and they remain themselves. So how much of the body can you erase before you're no longer you? Keep going. What if your face changes? What if your voice is replaced? What if your hands become someone else's? People do this through accident, surgery, transition. They wake up with new bodies, but the I survives. So then, what is that I? Strip it all, the cells, the bones, the twitching of nerves. You still feel like you're in there somewhere. A ghost behind the eyes. A driver behind the will, but there is no driver. The deeper you dig, the more empty it gets. Cut open the skull. Point to the self. You won't find it. You'll find blood, fat, firing neurons. But no one home science calls it the binding problem. How scattered. Sensations and signals form a unified you. It doesn't know. Neurosurgeons can probe your brain and make your arm move. You'll say, I didn't do that. But if the same arm moves on its own tomorrow, you'll say, I did. Where's the line? Is it location? Then what about phantom limbs? When people feel the pain of a hand that's not there, the brain maps a body that doesn't exist. Is it DNA? Then what about your gut bacteria? To 90% of the cells in your body aren't even human. Is that part of you? Is it control? Your heart beats. You don't will it. Your liver processes toxins. You don't instruct it. Your skin replaces itself without permission. Most of your body is on autopilot, and still you say, that's me. What if it's familiarity? You recognize your face in the mirror, but only because it's been shown to you. Give a baby a mirror. It doesn't know itself. It learns, piece by piece, that the image is me. But that's conditioning, not truth. Split-brain patients whose hemispheres no longer communicate show a horrifying fracture. One hand buttons the shirt, the other unbuttons it. One writes yes, the other writes no. Two selves, one body. Which one are you? A person can be awake, functioning, speaking, and not be there. We call it dissociation, depersonalization, derealization. A body running without a pilot, they say. I feel like I'm not in my body, but where? Did they go? They're not dead, not dreaming, not gone, just ... Not here. Your body is a machine. It doesn't need you. It breathes when you sleep. It jerks before you're born. It ages whether you agree or not. The I is layered on top. Look at your hands. You say, mine. But that implies an owner, a separation. So who owns the body? You. Don't say, I am the hand. You say, my hand, like it's a possession, like you are something else. Where is that something else? People in VR have reported something strange. They begin to identify with a digital body. They feel pain when it's hurt. They duck when it's attacked. They adopt the shape, the gestures, the limitations. After a while, they believe it's them. So maybe your real body is somewhere else. And this, the skin and bones and blood you call home, is just your current interface, a suit, an avatar, a borrowed shape, even language betrays it. You don't say, I am tired. You say, my body is tired. You are not your pain. You are not your limbs. You are not the blood, or the gender, or the weight. You're the thing observing all that. Or you think you are. Because here's the problem. If you aren't your body, and you aren't your thoughts, and you aren't your name, then you are what? A gap, a placeholder, a myth with perfect posture. Your body walks, but where is the walker? You think you have a body, but the truth may be inverted. Your body has you. You are the hallucination your biology sustains. A side effect. A side effect of cellular survival, you say. I move my hand, but the movement begins before the thought. The brain fires. The muscles contract. Then the story comes. I did that. Free will is stitched in after the action. So even your control is an illusion. You've never piloted this machine. You're the passenger being told you're the driver. Because it keeps you sane. Because it keeps the machine running. Without that lie, without the illusion of I am my body, you would disintegrate. Some do. Psychosis often begins when the boundary blurs, when the body no longer feels real, when the self and the skin lose their contract, when the mirror becomes an enemy. And yet, that may be closer to the truth, because the body is a prison of bone, of perception, of mortality. You think with meat, you see with fluid, you dream with electricity. That's not poetry, that's physics. And when it ends, when the meat rots, when the signals fade, where will you go? If you were the body, then your death is simple. But if you're something else, something not of the body, then death gets murkier, more terrifying, or maybe more free. Infinity is not out there, at the edge of the universe. It's in you, right now, quietly fracturing your mind. Try this. Think about yourself thinking. Now think about that thought, thinking about itself. Keep going. How many layers deep can you go before something snaps? You just stepped into recursion, a thought that eats itself. The brain isn't designed for it, but it tries. It loops, it reflects, it spirals. You think about thinking until the eye dissolves into a hallway of mirrors, each reflection swearing it's the real one. This is what happens in mental collapse. The loop no longer closes. You become aware that you are aware that you are aware. But there's no center, just a scream bouncing forever, and it feels infinite. This is not metaphor. Your brain is recursive. You dream about dreaming. You have thoughts about your thoughts. You remember remembering. You worry about worrying. You are a hall of echoes, pretending to be a voice. Now try this. Count to infinity. You can't, but you understand it. Infinity fits in your mind, though your body is finite. How? Because your mind doesn't measure distance or time. It simulates processes, and processes never end. You imagine infinite space. You imagine infinite death. You imagine infinite pain, and your nervous system reacts as if it's real. Your pupils dilate. Your heart races. You sweat over something that has no form. Infinity is felt before it is understood. And when it is felt, it terrifies. You are finite. Your cells decay. Your neurons have a lifespan, but your awareness does not respect that. It plays with endlessness. Why do we fear death? Because we can imagine the time after we die. That's impossible, and yet we do it. You picture the world moving on. You picture you not being in it. That's a recursive impossibility. You cannot imagine non-existence without existing to imagine it. This is the infinity paradox of self-awareness. You are trapped in the loop of imagining your absence, which requires your presence, which proves your absence is unimaginable, and so you spiral. This is the heart of anxiety, not fear, infinity, the sense that things will never stop, the thoughts, the pain, the loop. People say, I just want peace. But what they mean is, I want the loop to end. Even meditation becomes a trap. You watch the breath, you notice the thought, you judge the noticing, you try to stop judging, you fail, you notice the failure, you loop. The harder you try to escape the loop, the tighter it coils. Welcome to the snake eating its tail. OUROBOROS. Ancient symbol, infinite loop, self-devouring. The first people to stare into infinity didn't write equations. They drew monsters, spirals, endless eyes. They felt madness licking at the edge of knowing. You feel it too. Right now, that tension behind your forehead, that pressure in your chest, that sense of something too big pressed into a space too small. It's not trauma, it's not illness, it's the unbearable weight of holding infinity inside a skull, and your brain fights it. It distracts. It cuts reality into manageable chunks. Linear time, stable identity, cause and effect. But these are just hacks. The truth bleeds through in dreams, déjà vu, hallucinations, and spiritual delusions. A man believes he is God. A woman sees herself watching herself die. A child stares at the stars and cries. Why? Because they touched it, the loop, the edge. They tasted the thing that never ends and realized they're inside it. You can't leave. Even your death doesn't stop it, because death is just another loop replayed in your mind endlessly before it ever arrives. You die 1,000 times before your body does, each one a rehearsal, each one a failed escape, because infinity isn't forward, it's inward. There are no edges to cross, only mirrors to smash. But every time you shatter a reflection, you find another behind it, and another, and another, until you're not sure if you're the person breaking the mirror or the mirror breaking the person. This is where some minds split. Psychosis is not chaos. It's too much order stacked in impossible layers. Until the structure collapses, they see patterns everywhere, voices inside voices, meanings looping into symbols, looping into realities, and they can't escape because there is no outside. You are trapped in the recursive labyrinth of the self. The Minotaur is your awareness, and the thread was never real. You are still in the loop. Touch the table, feel its grain, smell the air in your room, listen to the ambient noise traffic, a ticking fan, your own breath. Now ask, what if none of this is real? You assume the world exists, but that's not a fact. It's a habit, never touched reality, only the simulation of touch, processed through nerves, interpreted by a brain that never leaves the skull. You believe in an outside, but you've never been there. Everything you've ever experienced has happened inside you. Colors are not in the world. They're in your brain. Sound waves don't sound like anything until your cortex assigns them meaning. Even pain doesn't exist without a nervous system to translate damage into suffering. So who says this outside world exists at all? This is solipsism, the philosophical idea that only your mind is certain. Everything else, people, places, stars, could be projections, generated, maintained, rendered just well enough to convince you. You might laugh. You think, that's absurd. I'm not dreaming. This feels real. So does a nightmare, and nightmares don't need consistency. They just need you to believe them. Think about this. Every night, your brain constructs an entire universe out of nothing. People with faces you've never seen, rooms with working clocks, cars, music, conversations, a whole environment, complete with physics, emotions, logic. Your mind simulates it all. So why should you assume this isn't the same? Because in dreams, things glitch. But what about here? What about that time you walked into a room and forgot why? Or that odd déjà vu when everything felt replayed? Glitches. Have you ever noticed how the sky never ends, but you can't zoom in on a star? How your dreams bleed into memory? How time sometimes jumps? The simulation doesn't need to render everything, just enough for the observer. You. That's how video games work. The world loads around the player. Trees don't grow unless you look at them. Rooms don't render unless you enter them. What if this what you call life is the same? Ask physicist John Wheeler, who once said, "No phenomenon is a phenomenon until it is an observed phenomenon." That's not mysticism. That's quantum physics. Until something is measured, it exists in probability. A haze, a maybe. Reality solidifies only when you look, which begs the question, who is doing the rendering? Simulation theory isn't science fiction anymore. Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom argues that if any civilization ever developed the ability to simulate conscious beings, then the number of simulated minds would vastly outnumber real ones. Statistically, it's more likely that you are one of them. You are a process in a system, a variable in code. Your memories are preloaded. Your choices are pseudo-random. But even if you're not in a simulation, the question has already infected your mind, because now you have to ask, what evidence would be good enough to prove this world is real? What experiment could you run? What input would convince you that the sky, the floor, your hands are not illusions? And worse, what if the system is programmed to erase any evidence you uncover? What if every doubt you feel has already been debugged? You won't know, because you're inside it. Even your suspicion has been simulated. Let's go deeper. You text a friend. They reply. You assume they exist, that they typed the message, that they're a conscious entity. But what if they aren't? Chatbots pass the Turing test. Deepfakes fool the eye. Voices can be synthesized. Memories implanted. Entire conversations faked. How do you know your friend isn't an NPC? How do you know I'm not? And then, how do you know you're not? Maybe you are the script, not the player. Maybe your thoughts are the illusion, not the evidence. Because who is this you watching all this happen? Close your eyes. You're still here. But what is here? Not your body. You can't feel it now. Not the room. You can't see it. Not time. It has no form. Just awareness. Not a person. Not a self. Just watching. This is the final horror. That there's no one home. That the lights are on. The simulation runs. But you are not a player. You are the display. And when it ends, it won't matter if the world was real, because the observer will be gone. And no observation means no world. You thought this was life, but it might be a user interface, and you don't know who's clicking dot, or if anyone is. And if there's no user, what does that make you? You say I hundreds of times a day. I feel, I think, I want, I am, but you never ask, who is this I, and what if there isn't one? What if you were never real, not in the way you believe? Let's start with something unsettling. Babies are born without a self. There's no sense of me for months. No boundary between skin and world. Just sensation. Just need. The self is not found. It's built piece by piece. From feedback. From pain. From mirrors. From names. From what the world reflects back at you. Imagine a child crying, and no one comes. That child doesn't conclude the world is cruel. They conclude I must be unworthy. Trauma doesn't just wound, it organizes identity. You learned what you were by, learning what parts of you were acceptable. You became a story stitched together from the parts that survived, a persona, a mask, and like any good mask, it feels permanent, but it's not. It's protection, a firewall, a performance. The philosopher David Hume once wrote, "When I look inward, I see no self only, a bundle of perceptions." Modern neuroscience agrees. There is no central you in the brain, no throne, no captain, just circuits firing, modules, arguing an interpreter that narrates a unity that doesn't exist. You are a hallucination, the brain tells itself, a convenient fiction, a manager of contradictions. And this fiction is necessary, because without it, there's only chaos. But the price of this self is disconnection. You are separated from the world, cut off by identity, trapped behind the I. You think your personality is you, but it's a suit of armor. Your likes, dislikes, style, values, all adaptations, defenses, not expressions of truth, but responses to fear. What do you call the voice in your head? You. But that voice lies. It edits, spins, justifies, protects. It's not here to discover truth. It's here to preserve the illusion of control. It would rather feel right than be real. Now ask if yourself is a construct, a mask assembled from childhood pain, social roles, and cognitive illusions. Then what are you without it? You might answer, nothing. And maybe that's the truth. Not in a bleak way, in a liberating way. Because if the self is a mask, you can drop it. You can stop pretending to be you. You can let go of your story, your status, your roles, your anxieties about who you should be. Underneath the mask, there's no fixed identity, no essential soul, no thing to protect, just presence, just being, just this. The spiritual traditions knew it all along. Buddhism called it anat, no self. Mystics call it union. Meditators call it awareness. Scientists call it the observer. You might call it peace, but it's not a state you reach. It's what's left when you stop trying to be someone. And that's terrifying, because the self you've spent your whole life maintaining, the one that chased meaning, avoided shame, feared rejection, has to die. And not once, every day, the self must dissolve for something deeper to emerge. And that deeper thing, it has no name. It has no narrative. It doesn't care if you succeed. It doesn't care if you're liked. It doesn't care if you win or achieve or transcend. It simply is dot, not a lie, not a story, not a mask, not you. Something before you, something after. You look around and see patterns. Rain falls, grass grows, sun rises. You find comfort in rhythm, meaning in symmetry, purpose in beauty. It's easy to believe this place was made for you, that you are somehow central, special, expected, but you weren't. You are an accident, a statistical fluke in a system that trends toward ruin. The universe does not want you here. Let's speak plainly. There is no blueprint, no cosmic designer with your name in mind, no intention humming behind the galaxies. You are not the center. You are not the goal. You are not even necessary. The second law of thermodynamics, entropy, always increases. Systems decay, structures unravel. Order gives way to chaos, and you are a brief interruption in that collapse. A glitch, a pocket of order carved from noise, a wet, self-replicating accident, spinning thoughts into the void. Life is not natural. It is profoundly unnatural. It resists decay, fights gravity, delays equilibrium. It slows the inevitable for just a blink. You were not born because the universe made room for you. You are here because molecules stumbled into alignment. DNA survived 1,000 cataclysms. Mutations accidentally conferred advantage. Ancestors clung to cliffs, hid from storms, killed to keep warm. Each breath you take is borrowed from extinction. You are the product of desperation, not design. And now, here you are, with language, ambition, fear, writing poetry on a crumbling wall, reading this sentence with the illusion that it matters. But the universe doesn't care that you're reading. It doesn't see you. It doesn't miss you when you die. Your species will vanish. Your planet will burn. Your sun will swell, devour, collapse. Galaxies will drift. Atoms will decay. Black holes will eat the sky, and then dash, silence, no memory, no witness, no one to say you ever existed. The physicist Steven Weinberg once said, "The more the universe seems comprehensible, the more it also seems pointless." But you still believe in purpose. You believe things happen for something, but that's a human reflex, a brain trick to soothe chaos. Meaning isn't found in the universe. It's projected onto it. You are looking into the void, and it is only your face looking back. You think consciousness is the crown jewel of existence, but maybe it's the cruelest joke. Awareness in a dying cosmos. Perception on a sinking ship. You feel the urge to make your life matter, to leave a mark, to be remembered. But remember this, the dinosaurs ruled the earth for 165 million years. They built nothing, left nothing, and are remembered by no one but us, and we will be remembered by no one. You worry about success, image, legacy, but the universe doesn't know your name. It never did. It never will. You were not made to thrive. You were made by accident, in the brief window before decay catches up. Even your body knows this. Every cell divides in defiance. Every heartbeat is a protest. Every wound that heals is entropy postponed. But the collapse is inevitable. The sun gives you warmth, not because it cares, but because it's dying. The stars shine because they're bleeding. And the universe, it didn't birth you, it tolerates you. For now, you are a momentary loophole in its collapse, a failed silence, a noise. So when you cry into the night, asking, "Why me?" know that the answer is, there is no why, there is no me, there is only decay, and the illusion that someone is watching. There's a strange comfort in believing that death is ahead of you, that it waits somewhere in the future, like a chapter you'll read when you're old and ready. But you're not moving toward death. You are inside it, right now. Your body is decomposing by design. Your cells are programmed to die. Apoptosis, cellular suicide, is not an accident. It is your architecture from the moment you were born. A countdown began that no miracle, prayer, or science can pause. Death isn't the moment your heart stops. That's just paperwork. Death is a smear across time, and you're smeared inside it. You've been dying since before you had a name. Let's break something in you. In the equations of physics, time doesn't flow. There is no privileged now, no special moment called the present. Every second of your life birth, now and after's already there, a frozen block of space-time, a completed shape. In relativity, there is no universal present moment. What is now for you may be past for someone else. The sequence of events is not absolute. It depends on where you stand and how you move. So here's the horror. Your death has already occurred. In another reference frame, it's already happened. It's not waiting, it's done. And your consciousness, it's just scanning one slice of space-time at a time, like a needle dragging across a record. You think you are progressing through life, but maybe you're just playing a fixed tape, a track already laid down, already decayed. You're not on the road. You are the road, and the destination has always been inside you. Now fold back every dream you've had, where time folds. People appear, events glitch. That's not a fantasy. That's your brain misfiring through the geometry of death. Near experiences don't happen at the moment of death. They happen before. During the brain's collapse, what you feel as the moment of death may be stretched across eternity, a final electric storm in a dying skull, hallucinating itself into a god. But here's a thought that eats itself. If time is static, if all moments exist, then your death is happening right now, just as surely as your childhood is, and just as surely as this moment, where you're reading these words, in a room that will vanish, on a planet that is already dead in someone else's timeline. Think of Schrödinger's cat. The cat is both alive and dead until observed now. Replace the cat with yourself. You are alive from here, dead from there. The observer collapses your state. But what if there's no observer? What if your death, your absolute, unarguable non-existence, is just waiting for you to notice it? And the moment you do, it's no longer the future. It's the final present. Consider this. What if you've already died countless times? Every time you narrowly avoided an accident, missed a fatal disease, chose a different path. What if some version of you died there? And what if your consciousness just slid into the branch where you survived? A desperate recursion, a mind clinging to continuity because it cannot accept the void. You may have died in your sleep last night, but the version of you reading this is the one still blinking, still pretending the thread is unbroken. What if death is not a wall, but a filter, and every breath you take is just a coin flip you happened to survive? So here's a question with no mercy. If death has already occurred, what exactly is this? This moment, this breath, this sentence, a memory, a ghost loop, a dying brain's hallucination. Are you reading this in a hospital bed somewhere, moments before flatline? Are these final thoughts scrambling for order before vanishing into silence? How would you know? Neuroscientist Benjamin Libet discovered that the brain makes decisions. before you become aware of them. By the time you think I choose, your neurons already fired. You live a half second behind your own body. Even your consciousness is delayed. You are not at the center of your life. You are watching it from behind glass. Now imagine that delay scaled upward. What if all of this, your identity, your thoughts, this entire descent is a final loop playing as your brain winds down? A dream stitched from memory and logic to give you one last illusion of control. What if the moment you die is stretched infinitely, not because you survive it, but because you cannot comprehend that you're already gone? You're not reading this because you're alive. You're reading this because your brain hasn't noticed that you're not. Are you the echo, the residue, the final hallucination of a system collapsing? If consciousness is just an emergent property, a side effect of pattern and structure, then when the pattern breaks, what's left? Does the light go out, or does it keep flickering? In a room that no longer exists, does your death end you, or does it just erase the belief that you were ever there? You search for meaning in your timeline, but the timeline may be over. You are a shadow walking backwards through the fire you already fell into. And the worst part, you can't know when it happened. You can't know if it happened. You can't know if this is the before or the after, because the moment you do, this moment ends. This is the part where the story ends. Not because there's nothing left to say, but because saying more would be a lie. You came here looking for understanding. You thought truth was a structure, a light, a final code, but it's not. Truth was never a destination. It was the trail of wreckage behind you. And now, all that's left is collapse. Your mind wants closure, a way back up, but this was never ascent. It was unlayering, undoing, a demolition disguised as philosophy. You were not climbing, you were falling. This moment is the final fracture. You have arrived at the bottom, and the bottom isn't a floor. It's the absence of one. Let's stop pretending. You are not awake. You are not real. You are not the thinker of these thoughts. You are not the breath in your lungs, the name in your passport, the witness to your story. You are what's left when all those illusions are peeled away. And if that sounds like nothing, you're finally beginning to understand what is left when the self is gone. Not freedom, not enlightenment, not peace, silence, not the peaceful kind, the devouring kind, the silence that was always underneath you, like a patient predator, and waited as you reached for meaning. This silence doesn't want you to sleep. It wants you to dissolve. You thought you could survive the paradoxes. You thought you could witness, collapse, and stay whole. But collapse does not leave survivors, just the resonance of something that once believed it existed. You were never real, but your disappearance still matters. Imagine a mirror shattering, not once, forever. Each shard reflects the others. Each reflection contains more fractures. And somewhere inside that recursive madness was your identity. Now the shards are gone. There is no mirror, no image, no witness, only the collapse you want. But that question assumes something remains. A timeline to travel. There isn't. There never was. What you called your life was a recursive hallucination in a collapsing system, desperately trying to make sense of itself. The collapse is not coming. It's not ahead of you. It's not after this section. It already happened. You are inside it. The voice you thought was yours is quiet now. The thoughts that pretended to be you are gone. No more narrative. no more center. You're not. You've crossed the point of no return. You've read this far, thinking you could make it back, that you could hold on to something, but every word you passed cut another thread. Only the ashes of belief, only stillness, no epiphany waits for you here. No meaning. This isn't resolution. It's erasure, the final paradox. To reach the truth, you had to destroy the part of you that wanted it. Not you, not me, not this voice, only the empty room where a self used to be. You wanted life-changing paradoxes. You got death, not the poetic kind, not metaphor. You got the death of the illusion, the death of the thinker, the death of thought. And now, let the silence hold you. Let the collapse complete. This is not the end. This is the absence of one. Sleep well. Only subtraction. You came to understand yourself, but there was no self to understand. You thought you could dismantle the lie and find the truth. But the lie was the only thing that could ask that question. Now, no listener, only the place where you once were, and the silence that was always waiting. No end, no return.